Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yamunatera Vanacharim Yamunatera Vanacharim Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramam Sabhavakacharya Satarashat Śrīmad is Divine Grace Abhaichāranavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Srila Prabhupada Iskon BBT Founder Acharya ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramam Sabhavakacharya Satarashat Śrīmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki Shri Guru Parampara ki Shri Rup, Shri Sanatan, Shri Bhadranath, Shri Shifakapala Bhatta Das Raghunath ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki, Namacharya Sharadas Thakur ki, Premsko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityānanda Chi Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopnath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Gir Govardhan ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki, Ganga Maya Yamuna Maya ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi ki, Shri Radha Madhav Astasaki ki, Shri Panchatattva ki, Shri Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This morning we will be reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 1, Questions by King Parikshit, text 6, which is on the board. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastabayesya Bhadreso Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti bhavati naistiki. Dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. Dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. Pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. Pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. Mataji, please. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa. pāda-mūlaṁ na muñcati. mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ. pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. Thank you. Dhauta-ātmā, whose heart has been cleansed. Puruṣaḥ, the living being. Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pāda-mūlaṁ, the shelter of the lotus feet. Na, never. muñcati, gives up, mukta, liberated, sarva, all, parikleśaḥ, of all miseries of life, pānthaḥ, the traveler, sva-śaraṇaṁ, in his own abode, yathā, as it were. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. A pure devotee of the Lord, whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service, never relinquishes the lotus feet of the Lord, for they fully satisfy him, as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. Please repeat. A pure devotee of the Lord, whose heart has been cleansed by the process of devotional service, never relinquishes the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa, for they fully satisfy him. As a traveler is satisfied as at home after a troubled journey. The purport. One who is not a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord is not completely cleansed in the heart. But a perfectly cleansed person never quits the devotional service of the Lord. In the discharging such devotional service as ordered by Brahmaji to Nārada in the preaching of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, sometimes a representative of the Lord engaged in preaching works, preaching work meets various so-called difficulties. This was exhibited by Lord Nityānanda when he delivered the two fallen souls, Jagāi and Mādhāi. And similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified by the non-believers. But such difficulties are very gladly suffered by the devotees in preaching, because in such activities, although apparently very severe, the devotees of the Lord feel transcendental pleasure because the Lord is satisfied. Prahlāda Mahārāja suffered greatly, but still he never forgot the lotus feet of the Lord. This is because a pure devotee of the Lord is so purified in heart that he cannot leave the shelter of Lord Kṛṣṇa in any circumstances. There is no self-interest in such service. The progress of culturing knowledge by the jnanis or the bodily gymnastics by the yogis are ultimately given up by the respective performers. But the devotee of the Lord cannot give up the service of the Lord, for he is ordered by the spiritual master. Pure devotees like Nārada and Nityānanda Prabhu take up the order of the spiritual master as the sustenance of life. They do not mind what becomes of the future of their lives. They take the matter very seriously, as the order comes from the higher authority, from the representative of the Lord, or from the Lord himself. The example set herein is very appropriate. A traveler leaves home to search wealth in a far distant place, sometimes in the forest and sometimes on the ocean and sometimes on hilltops. Certainly, there are many troubles for the traveler, when he is in such unknown places, but all such troubles are at once mitigated as soon as the sense of family affection is remembered. As soon as he returns home, he forgets all such troubles on the way. A pure devotee of the Lord is exactly in a family tie with the Lord, and therefore he is undeterred in discharging his duty in a full affectionate tie with the Lord. The verse again. Dhauta-ātmā puruṣaḥ Kṛṣṇa pāda-mūlaṁ muñcati mukta-sarva-parikleśaḥ pānthaḥ sva-śaraṇaṁ yathā. A pure devotee of the Lord whose heart has been cleansed by the process of devotional service never relinquishes the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa, for they fully satisfy him, as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. Om ajñānatimirandasya jananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Chaitanya-manobhishtam stapitam yena bhutale svam rupakadamayam dadati svapadantikam vandeham shiru shiyuda pada-kamalam shirum vaishnavam sha Shirupam jagajatam saganaragnatam vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parjanasaitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabano Jatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastu Tapta Kanshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhani Sutadevi Pranamama Hare Priye Vancha kalptrabhasya kripa sindhuvesya patinam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityānanda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pacharne. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarne. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So we have here Maharaj Pariksit is expressing here some of his realizations. Factually, the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a conversation between two pure devotees. One takes the role as the hearer and the other as the speaker. But here Maharaj Pariksit is mentioning the symptoms of a pure devotee. To be a pure devotee, one must be completely cleansed in heart. If one is not completely cleansed in heart, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, one is not a pure devotee of the Lord. Interesting that Srila Prabhupada's secretary asked once Srila Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are there in ISKCON? And Srila Prabhupada, he asked his secretary, how many devotees are there in ISKCON today? So he considered all the devotees pure devotees. But here it is said, a pure devotee is one who is completely cleansed in heart. That there are two kinds of pure devotees. One who acts as a pure devotee, and one who is pure in heart. Two different levels of pure devotees. And what is the Shastric basis for that? That's in Nectar of Devotion, a verse quoted many times by Srila Prabhupada. Iyayasya redasya karmana manasagiri nikalesh abevashte sujivan mukta sa uchate. One who uses one's body, mind, words, all one's desires in the service of the Lord is imperceptibly liberated. It's not yet complete pure, but imperceptibly means in the not distant future he will become liberated, because he acts as a spirit soul, as a servant of Krishna, and he acts without self-interest. That's one characteristic mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. There is no self-interest in such service. So if we act purely, we are as good as pure devotees. But when we become pure devotees, when that happens, we are completely pure in heart. That 1 week ago, so we had Gundicha Marjanam, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple, and there were two cleansings. The first cleansing was done, and there was a competition. For one who would collect the most dust, and Lord Chaitanya collected, of course, much more dust than all the others together. And they removed all the dust, and the temple was clean. And Lord Chaitanya said, let's clean again. And surprisingly, at the second cleansing, again so much dust came up. And again, Lord Chaitanya collected the most. So there is a gross cleansing and a subtle cleansing. The gross cleansing, that starts from the moment we follow the four regulative principles, give up sinful life, then quickly our heart becomes purified of the greatest propensities to this tendency for doing sinful activities is removed from the heart. But that's not sufficient. The heart is full with material desires. And some material desires, so the most gross material desires are removed, but the subtle desires, the desire for distinction, profit, adoration, is subtle. And that takes much longer. But what's the symptom? When the heart becomes completely cleansed, then one becomes very much attracted to the service of the Lord. When the heart is cleansed, and you chant Hare Krishna mantra, and anartha-nivritti is over, nama-bhas. Nama-bhas is anartha-nivritti. Then the heart becomes cleansed. And then, when the heart is cleansed, Haridas Thakur said, then you chant the Sudanam, the pure name, and immediately you become attracted, because you are at the border of liberation. You are crossing the border of liberation. And then, when one's consciousness is pure, and attraction to Krishna becomes natural. We have in the first canto the Atma-Ram verse. There we see that Sukadev Goswami, he was liberated from birth, but then when he heard the slokas of the Bhagavatam, he became attracted. And that attraction never ceases, that increases. And one cannot give up the service of the Lord. Even when you experience great difficulties, even while experiencing great difficulties in the preaching work, such devotees feel always satisfied and they feel transcendental pleasure. And he cannot give up this service. It's his life and soul. His service is, he executes on the order of the spiritual master. They forget themselves, the future of their body. They are focusing on that order. So this verse explains that the devotee, he can suffer in this material world, but at the same time is relishing that. So that is an art to be mastered. Then never will anything disturb you in this world. But this is the position of a very advanced devotee. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is describing here. That brings up the question, what is the secret? How can we do that? How can you relish a condition of severe suffering? And what's the answer? The answer is also in the purport. The answer is, what's the key? It's an affectionate tie with the Lord. Affectionate tie. So you see, a man is working in a factory or is working in an office, and besides is the picture of his wife and his children. Working in the factory is hell. But why is he doing it? For his family, for his kids, that he has the picture of his wife on his desk. So that is his impetus. He knows who he is working for. So that is why factories or corporations, companies, they like to engage married people. Because married people, they have a reason to work. They need the money to maintain their wife and children. And they like married people, these companies, because they are good workers. If one is free and independent, then one can come and go easily. Their family is depending on his paycheck. And therefore, married workers are dedicated workers. So But the same principle applies in the affectionate tie of the devotee with the Lord. That why is he working? He's working because he feels love for Krishna. That he's working because he feels love for his spiritual master. That he's working because he feels love for the Vaishnavas, for the devotees. Therefore, he's willing to take all difficulties for the Lord, and relish it. It is a big austerity that it's like a mother. A mother takes care of the baby. And the baby is crying in the middle of the night. So the baby needs this, the baby needs that, and this is 24 hours, non-stop. And the mother is taking such suffering upon herself, just to see that the baby is always happy. So this is because of the tie of affection. The mother relishes it. It's very nice. How sweet. So in the same way, if one feels love for Srila Prabhupada, that if one feels love for Krishna, if one feels love for one's Guru Maharaj, if one feels love for the devotees, then one can conquer all obstacles. That, like in the verse we chant many times in the beginning of the lecture, Mukam karoti vaichalam pankum lankayate kirim yat kripa tadam vande Paramananda Madhavan. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him who turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. Such is the mercy of the Lord. So even if we don't have the ability to speak, but I love my spiritual master, I will learn how to give eloquent speeches. Usually people are terrified when they have to give public speeches. And God brothers of Bhakti Maharaj told many times that Bhakti Maharaj the first time was sent to give a Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. And he was terrified. He kept his eyes closed all the time. I heard this story many times. But we see how he became one of the most eloquent speakers in ISKCON. So a devotee is willing to put himself in great difficulty and distress so that he can please his Guru Maharaj. So that's the point Srila Prabhupada is making here. When I was traveling with Prahlāda Mahārāja in 2001, Prahlāda Mahārāja and myself were sent by the European regional governing body to Serbia. And the war ended at the end of 1999 there. At that time, Prahlāda Mahārāja was the chairman of the European regional governing body, and I was the secretary, so we were sent together to Serbia. And that was quite an experience. I remember the challenges. We had a flight from Amsterdam to Zagreb, and the devotees in Zagreb, I remember Bhakti Maharaj was there at that moment, and we had a nice program with him. And then the next day, the devotees drove us to the border between Croatia and Serbia. But at the end of the war, at that border, there have been heavy clashes, and so many people died. So the devotees drove us to the border, like 200 meters from there, and said, "You go now." And we were both in civil clothes. And then we went first to the Croatian border, but then we came out at the Serbian border. And Prahlāda Mahārāja had an American passport. And it were the Americans with the NATO who had bombed Belgrade. So we went both to a fierce interrogation at the border. And they asked Prahlāda Mahārāja, "What are you coming? What's your purpose of your visit?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a yoga teacher." And I could see inside he was meditating on Krishna. But then we came at the border, and they checked our luggage. They opened my luggage, and they found all these dhotis. And then there was a pack of Mahaburfis from Radha, Shishi Radha Gopinath. And he asked me, "What is this?" And I told him, "These are milk sweets." He put it back, but in between there was a picture of Radha Gopinath in my suitcase. With at the corner a picture of Bhakti Charamaj. And the border officer, he looked at this picture, and then he put it back in the suitcase. He closed the suitcase and said, "Go!" And at the other side, one Serbian devotee was waiting for us. We arrived there, and he was there with this typical Russian or Yugoslavian Yugo cars. It's a very small car. It's like the Marutis here, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. That very small car, and we just fit into the car. I was at the back, between all the luggage, and Maharaj was in front, and there was Ātmā Prabhu, and this time he was regional secretary for Serbia. And he had calculated how much fuel he needed to get at the next gas station. But unfortunately, he miscalculated. And when we were driving, we fell without oil, no gas oil. And he disappeared in the fields with 2 plastic bottles. And we were sitting in that little car there for 2 hours. And then he came back with some fuel and we could go to the next station, the gas station. And then we drove to Belgrade. And on the way we could see big holes in the highway from the bombs. And practically all houses full with bullet holes on the way. And when we arrived at Belgrade, we had immediately to register at the police. But the devotees were very afraid because we were not a recognized organization there. Everything had to be underground. So they had a temple hidden in an apartment somewhere. When we came there, all the devotees were in civil dress because that... and we arrived in Belgrade, and there, Prahlāda Mahārāja and me, we did something what we usually don't do. We looked at the television. And at the television, Prahlāda Mahārāja is from New York. We saw how the Twin Towers collapsed. It was the day of 9/11, so it was 2001. Never forget it. But because at that time in Serbia, the Orthodox Church, Serbian Church, they had a monopoly on religion. And you could not go from one place to another in your dhoti. You might get in trouble. They would attack you. So, Prahlāda Mahārāja and myself, we would be in civil dress. We would travel and have a house program somewhere. First change our dress, then have the program. Then after, changing dress again. So, one time we had a secret program in a hall behind a hotel in the center in Belgrade. And we had a program there. And we were thinking after the program, yes, it's not far to the temple where we were staying. Let's keep our dress, let's not change. So we went out to a parking lot where the devotees were waiting, and they were busy loading books, Prabhupada's books, from one car to another. And suddenly the police appeared. And the first thing they asked was our passports. So we gave our passports. In the passport there is a little card for registration at the police office. And they took our passport and went to the other devotees who were transferring the books. And then there was a heavy discussion. We didn't understand any of the Serbian languages. Now Prahlāda Mahārāja speaks Russian after many years, but we didn't understand anything. And you could see gestures, and the police was pointing to us. But finally it cooled down, and they were allowed to go, and the police gave back our passports. And then we asked the devotees what were they saying. And the point was, they were transferring the books without papers. And they said, you should follow the examples of your visitors. They have registered, everything is in order. So we were thinking they are going to arrest us. But this is one of the many pastimes we got together. We got nearly arrested a few times in Serbia. But these troubles, it became the most ecstatic time of our lives, engaging in Srila Prabhupada's mission in an area where it's very, very difficult. So that's the point Srila Prabhupada is making here. A devotee, he cannot give up his service for the Lord. And why? Because it's the order of the spiritual master. It's Srila Prabhupada's mission. And this is what this vyavasa-ātmika abode in the 241, one-pointed intelligence. Srila Vishwanath Thakur said, one should take the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. They take the order of the spiritual master as their sustenance of life. Usually we think that our sustenance is eating. Rice, dal, chapati, that is the sustenance of our life. Water, shelter, clothing, these things. But what are these sustaining? They are only sustaining a deteriorating body, which is destined to die. That is not the actual sustenance of life. It's not your prasadam, it's not your clothing, it's not your shelter, your water. The actual sustenance of your life is the order received of the spiritual master. So whatever the spiritual master told me, I must take as my life and soul. And so, and by accepting the order of my spiritual master as my life and soul, I actually become alive. So, this purport of Srila Prabhupada is full of so many wonderful points that a perfectly cleansed person never quits devotional service of the Lord. So that requires faith. That requires steadiness. But the more our heart becomes cleansed, the more we become attracted to Krishna. But we can say, yes, I'm not on that level. I'm not on Nishta. I'm not liberated. Maybe in 30, 40 years it will go better, but for the moment I'm not. So I don't have that higher taste, and so there is a danger that I will revert to material activities. What can we do to prevent that? The answer is given by Bhakti Maharaj. So, never leave the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, never leave ISKCON. So, as sure we remain in the movement, and to remain in the movement we must have faith. And faith comes from those who have faith. Faith comes from those who are advanced. So, faith comes from the devotee association. And faith comes from surrendering to the spiritual master. and engage in devotional service. Why does that give you faith? I just gave that example of preaching in Serbia. The experience was, during these activities in Serbia, we could feel Krishna's protection was always there. Always. And that experience gives you faith. It's living in an affectionate tie with Krishna. To come to the point of nishtha, we must, or the point we become really attracted to Krishna, we must come to anartha nivritti, the cleansing of the heart. But before, we must come to bhajana kriya, the practice of devotional service. And this practice has two stages, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, anishtita and nishtita. Anishtita, bhakti, is unsteady devotional service. But after some time, we become steady. Nishtita bhajana kriya, steadiness. Does the cleansing of the heart start with nishtita bhajana kriya? We are steady? Answer is no. It's not sufficient. To enter anartha nivritti, or to enter the stage of namabhas, which is the same, one must give up one's offenses, one's anarthas. And the main offenses are the 10 offenses, which it finds its roots in an immature or an inner attitude without respect, no respect. That's why we commit these 10 offenses, because we don't have respect for the spiritual master or his instructions. We are neglecting them. Like Srila Prabhupada said, he asked his disciples, why am I translating these books? Why at the middle of the night I'm getting up to translate them? And he said, it's for you to read. If you don't read my books, Guru Avahya, offense to the spiritual master. These are the words of Prabhupada. So we should read Prabhupada's books, follow his instructions. And of course, a great cause of offenses is that we don't behave properly towards devotees, that we make offenses. And why? Because we are neophytes. A neophyte cannot understand one who is advanced, who is not advanced, and therefore he makes offenses. That we cannot see the internal of a devotee. Something to be careful with. And then also that there is the point of giving up our attachment to sense gratification. We may chant Hare Krishna to become happy in this world, but that's not the purpose of the chanting. This material world is not a happy place. And you can never be happy here. It's not possible. It's all temporary. Dukkha layam asasvatam, Krishna says. So that is the karma kanda, chanting Hare Krishna to get benefits in this world. No. We chant Hare Krishna to purify our heart and to develop love for Krishna, to get the highest, the enjoyment, spiritual enjoyment. So this is important, that we come to the point of Trinata Picha Nityanata Ora Visaisne Amana Manadena Kirtanya Sudari. That then one becomes humble, tolerant, devoid of all prestige, giving all honor to others. These are the subtle anarthas gone. And then one can chant the holy name constantly. Then one feels attracted. But what is needed? Na dhanam, na jnanam, na sundarim, kavatavashi, sakamiri, chamamishvari, bhavatir bhaktir haitukitvari. Lord Chaitanya said, I don't want followers, no women, no wealth. I only want your causeless mercy, birth after birth, your causeless devotional service. Birth after birth means not desiring even liberation. Then in course of time we will enter anartha nivritti, provided we give up these 10 offenses. And then, because we are attached to Krishna, all this duality of happiness and distress in this world, it doesn't touch our heart anymore. Yamina vyatatante te puruṣaḥ sabha agama samudaka sukha duram diram yomitat vaya kalpate. One who can tolerate happiness and distress, he is ready for liberation and no suffering anymore. But of course, the easiest process to come to that point is the Bhagavat Nitya Seva, daily hearing the Bhagavatam, and that will purify our heart. That's the easy way. If we don't take it the easy way, it will be the hard way. Thank you very much. Any comment or question, please? We have a few minutes left. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj, for such a wonderful class. You mentioned that we have to develop relation with Srila Prabhupada, that tie, that affection. So, Maharaj, like in my stage, it's like my chanting is going on, my Bhagavatam class and morning program is going on every day. Yeah, I'm okay. Let it go on, let it go on. That tie, that affection, I'm not able to develop. So, like how do I, what steps should I take to develop this tie and affection, so that then we achieve the result that we don't want to leave the lotus feet of the Lord. We develop that tie and we are not affected by this happiness and distress of this world.
It was in 96 or 97. I was here in Mayapur with my spiritual master, Bhakti Maharaj. At that time, the BBT just released the 1-volume edition of Prabhupada Lilamrita. And Guru Maharaj, instead of the Bhagavatam, he was reading in the morning from Prabhupada Lilamrita. He said, the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavatam are the same. And he was giving class based on Prabhupada Lilamrita. So if we should all read this Prabhupada Lilamrita, every word, and that will help us to connect with Srila Prabhupada. So that's important. If we do that, we will understand what Srila Prabhupada has done for us. And all the difficulties that he has taken just for us. And it's also very important to understand Srila Prabhupada's position as the founder Acharya. I was at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. I think it was 2018 with Bhakti Maharaj, and he was giving initiation to many of my graduate students of Bhakti Shastri. And he asked me to speak, and I was just sitting. I didn't want to speak, but he was just beside me. And before speaking, I prayed to him, please bless me. And you know what he was saying to me? He said, no. He was pointing to Prabhupada. He said, this is where the blessings come from. So we should always be conscious. Why are we here? It's only because of Prabhupada. Therefore, it's important we connect our own Guru Maharaj always and see him as a representative of Prabhupada. So put Prabhupada in the center. Hear about his pastimes. Bhakti Maharaj so beautifully at this Abhay series. Just see them, hear them, and you will become attracted to Prabhupada. Does that help? Okay, good. Our time is over. Yeah, maybe the last question, yeah.
Maharaj, like in the purport, it was there that the devotee does not mind the difficulties which come while preaching, because he is preaching for his spiritual master. But the way difficulties test is that it is required for us to be peaceful as well, to develop our Krishna consciousness and to cultivate all the good qualities. So that is also the instruction which we get from our acharyas.
Yeah.
So when difficulties come, then we are naturally disturbed.
Yeah.
So the question becomes whether pursuing the problem and difficulty is solving the purpose of the acharyas, or whether we should basically pratikulasya varjanam, avoid the difficulty and remain peaceful, and that would please our acharyas.
That's a very important question, thank you. What is described here in the purport is for the advanced devotee. Should not imitate that. Be on our level. Prabhupada instructed us, health first. So we must, and Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, yeah, you must have a balanced life. Balance in everything we do. And that's very important, health first. That the advanced devotee is on another level. In Bhagavad Gita, it's explained already. In the second chapter, there are two kinds of svadharma. Material svadharma and spiritual svadharma. The material svadharma is doing our duty in the varnashram according to our psycho-physical nature. If we are in that condition, like all of us, we should take care of our health and balanced life. But when you come up the spiritual platform and you perform your service in your siddha day, in your spiritual body, then the material body, one is not even aware of it. But that's the advanced stage. We cannot imitate that. And what's described in this verse here is the advanced stage. Does that help to understand that? Thank you. Good. Grandra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai.